Most people think change happens when motivation finally shows up, when clarity arrives, when confidence appears, when they feel ready. I used to think that too. But here's what I learned after 30 days of acting from my future identity. Readiness is not the cause of change. It's the result of alignment. And most people never change because they're waiting for permission from a version of themselves that doesn't exist yet. So I stopped waiting. For 30 days, I made a decision that felt irrational, premature, and uncomfortable. I stopped acting like who I was, and started acting like who I was becoming. Not pretending, not visualizing, not affirming, but behaving, daily, quietly, consistently, from the identity I claimed was future me. What changed wasn't dramatic at first. There were no instant wins, no external validation, no sudden transformation. But something far more important began to shift. My internal reference point. We're taught that identity follows behavior, that first you change your circumstances, then your habits, then your confidence, and only then your identity updates. But neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and systems theory all point to something radically different. Identity is not updated by outcomes. It is stabilized by repetition. And most people are trapped because they keep repeating behaviors that belong to an outdated version of themselves, while hoping for a future they're not structurally aligned with. So I ran an experiment. Not motivational, not philosophical, structural. For 30 days before making decisions, responding to messages, entering rooms, setting boundaries, spending time, or speaking, I asked one question. How would the version of me I claim I'm becoming move right now? And then I did that. Even when it felt unnatural. Even when it felt premature. Even when it felt socially risky. This is what happened. Days 1-4. Identity resistance. The first days were not empowering. They were destabilizing. Because the moment you act from a future identity, your nervous system notices the mismatch. Your body says, this is unfamiliar. This breaks pattern. This threatens consistency. And consistency, not happiness, is what the nervous system is designed to protect. I noticed subtle resistance everywhere. Pauses before speaking. A hesitation before saying no. A reflex to over-explain decisions that future me wouldn't justify. The impulse wasn't fear of others. It was loyalty to the old self. Identity is not just self-image. It's a survival map. And when you behave outside of it, the brain treats it like risk. So instead of pushing harder, I observed, every urge to shrink, every urge to explain, every urge to delay. And I didn't correct it with force. I just didn't obey it. That alone was disruptive. Days 5-8. Behavioral recalibration. Around day 5, something subtle began to change. Not externally, internally. Decision-making became quieter. The future identity doesn't negotiate as much. It doesn't dramatize. It doesn't rehearse. So I stopped rehearsing. I sent messages without cushioning language. I ended conversations when they were complete. I declined opportunities that didn't match the trajectory, even when they were comfortable. This revealed something uncomfortable. My old identity was built around being responsive. My future identity was built around being selective. And selectivity felt cold at first. But it wasn't cold. It was clean. The nervous system began to learn a new baseline. I can act without collapse. I can choose without justification. I can pause without losing connection. That recalibration mattered more than confidence. Days 9-13, social feedback shift. By the second week, the environment started responding. Not dramatically, precisely. People spoke more directly. Some stopped testing boundaries, others leaned in. Here's the technical reason. Human systems mirror stability. When your behavior becomes consistent, predictable, and internally aligned, others adapt to conserve energy. Inconsistent identity invites negotiation. Stable identity discourages it. I wasn't more dominant. I was more legible. And legibility reduces friction. Some relationships softened. Others thinned. There was no conflict, just filtration, which revealed an uncomfortable truth. Some connections survive only when you remain undecided. Days 14-18. internal authority formation. Midway through the experiment, internal dialogue changed. Less self-checking, less post-interaction analysis, less replaying conversations. Why? Because regret often comes from acting against identity. When behavior aligns with identity, even a future one, the brain registers coherence. Coherence reduces rumination. I didn't feel louder. I felt anchored. And this is where people misunderstand authority. Authority is not dominance. It's internal agreement. When your actions don't contradict who you believe you are becoming, the nervous system relaxes. And relaxed systems don't seek permission. Days 19 to 23. Energy redistribution. This phase surprised me most. I had more energy. Not because I slept more. Not because I optimized routines. Because I stopped context switching between identities. Old self here. Aspirational self there. Social self somewhere else. Fragmentation is exhausting. Future identity behavior collapses fragmentation. One direction, one standard, one internal reference. I noticed my posture change. Speech slowed. Reactions softened. Not because I tried, because there was less internal friction to manage. Days 24 to 27. Environmental reorganization. Late in the process, consequences appeared. Opportunities aligned differently. Conversations became shorter and more meaningful. Requests decreased. Why? Because when you act from future identity, you pre-filter reality. You stop signaling availability for timelines you're exiting. The world doesn't resist that. It adapts. Not out of respect, out of efficiency. Days 28 to 30. Identity lock-in. By the final days, something became clear. I wasn't acting anymore. I had crossed a threshold. The future identity had stopped feeling like a projection and started feeling like a memory catching up. That's the paradox. You don't grow into an identity. You stabilize into it. And stabilization happens through repetition, not belief. After 30 days, here's what actually changed. Not my confidence. Not my results. Not my personality. My point of origin. I stopped initiating action from who I had been and started initiating from who I was becoming. And once that shift happens, everything reorganizes around it. This isn't manifestation. It's identity mechanics. You don't attract what you want. You enact what you identify with. And the moment you stop waiting to feel like your future self and start behaving like them, the gap collapses. Not magically, structurally. So if you're stuck, it's not because you don't know what to do. It's because you're still acting from an identity that has already expired. The future doesn't arrive when you're ready. It arrives when your behavior makes it inevitable.